Goofus? Rika. I'm sorry. Yeah. Thank you. Mine should be easy.
What a way to start. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the San Bruno City Council meeting of July 9th, 2013. I'd like to thank the Garden Club for the flowers they always provide for our meetings. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Salazar.
Mic is on.
Here.
Can you hear me now?
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Here.
Mayor Ruane.
Here.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance. Connie Jackson, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a few announcements. The first one is the regular City Council meeting of August 13th is canceled. The second announcement is the Beautification Task Force is accepting nominations for the annual Beautification Awards program. Applications can be found on the website as well as in the City Clerk's office. And the deadline is Friday, August 30th, 2013 at 5 p.m. Irene, would you like to say something?
There's not much to add.
Okay.
There's three main categories. There's single-family residents and that people who have high curb appeal should nominate themselves or their neighbors. There's also xeriscaping, which is the drought-tolerant landscaping, and then the most improved. So there's people out there I've seen driving as I've driven around that have totally re-landscaped their properties in front. So if you know anyone who's done that and you want to urge them to put in a nomination form, then the Beautification Task Force will sit in September and do the judging, and in October at the first council meeting there, which I believe is October 10th, whoever wins will be presented with a plaque and a small check and an opportunity to say something at the council meeting. So we urge you to look around. You have until end of August, to put in nominations. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4, presentations. There aren't any presentations this evening. Item number 5, review of the agenda. If there's no objection, I would like to move item 11, the annual report from the Culture and Arts, to right after item 8, public hearings. Item 6, approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting of June 25th, 2013. Any errors, corrections, omissions? Seeing none, they'll be approved as submitted. Consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implemented earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested by a council member, citizen, or staff. Any action on the consent calendar?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion is second. On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Item number 8, public hearings. Going to hold a public hearing, waive the first reading, and introduce ordinances as presented in the notice of proposed increased mail to all property owners. Item number A, ordinance imposing a 2.61% rate increase to ecology, garbage, and recycling services for 2013-2014 to be effective September 1st, 2013. And item B, an ordinance imposing a 4.48% rate increase for ecology to initiate an organics program to be effective January 1st, 2014. I'd like to get comments from staff, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. As you're aware, the current franchise agreement with Recology San Bruno entitles Recology to a rate adjustment each year with a 3-year cycle of a detailed rate analysis every 3 years with an interim rate adjustment. Thank you. With the interim rate adjustment in the 2 years in between those detailed rate years. The current year rate proposal is a detailed rate year analysis. As I've presented at previous City Council meetings, the city did receive a detailed rate analysis from Recology on March 1st in accordance with the franchise agreement. We have reviewed that rate adjustment. That rate proposal was 2.17%. However, due to the choice to delay the rate implementation from July 1st to September 1st, that rate adjustment is 2.61%. The City Council approved the mailing of the notice on May 14th, 2013 to notify all property owners of the rate increase, and that notice was mailed on May 24th. The base rate adjustment of 2.61% was advertised to go into effect September 1st, as well as a supplemental proposal for the organics program that would go into effect January 1st, 2014. That would result in an 8.96% rate adjustment overall to be phased in over the course of the first year of the organics program. The ordinance this evening would request council action on the implementation of the first rate adjustment of 4.48% effective January 1st, with the following two rate adjustments to go into effect July 1st, 2014, and January 1st, 2015. So what I'd like to do is spend a few minutes discussing what the proposed organics collection is. What is organics and what are the benefits to the community? What organics does is it diverts waste from the landfills, and so it offers an opportunity for residents to take their food waste from the current existing gray garbage bin and put it into the green yard waste bin. That helps the city continue to meet its diversion goals. The current diversion goal mandated by the state of California is 75% by the year 2020. The city's current diversion rate is 56%. And so in order for the city to continue moving towards that 75% diversion goal, organics is a mechanism for that to occur. What it also does is it provides an opportunity for residents and businesses to all participate in organics composting. We've heard from many residents who state that they currently compost already in their backyard, which is great. However, not everybody has the opportunity to compost. Some people live in multifamily residential units and don't have a place to do that composting. What this program offers is a simple manner for everybody in the city, both residential and commercial businesses, to participate in this program. And I would also add that this program, the implementation of this program, similar to single stream recycling, where people could previously take the recyclables in and receive funds for that. Some people did participate. The implementation of single stream recycling similarly allowed an opportunity for everybody to participate from their home. What organics does is it allows people to dispose of their food waste and their food waste materials in their existing green yard waste bin. So you can dispose of your food waste with your yard trimmings. It is the main change and the main driver of the rate increase of 8.96% is that it moves the collection from the current collection schedule for the green waste bin from a bi-weekly schedule to a weekly schedule. So that requires additional trucks and additional drivers to provide that increased level of service. So that is the main driver for the increased cost of the program. There have been concerns about the fact that disposing of food waste in the green waste bin could create messiness and smell. And what I would just do is remind that this food waste is already out at the curbside. However, it is currently in the gray garbage bin. The main difference is that moving to the green yard waste bin, you no longer can utilize a plastic bag to contain that yard waste, as the proposed program is a bagless program, meaning that you are not allowed to use plastic bags, including biodegradable bags. You are allowed to use paper bags and newspaper clippings to contain that food waste and utilize that to dispose of that food waste in your green waste bin. However, the main difference is that food waste would not be contained in a plastic bag going forward. This material, the green waste bin, the food waste, it is picked up and it is taken to a different processor to create a more high quality compost at the end. And this compost would be available to residents for free as part of this program. Just a similar analogy would be the moving towards the single stream recycling when the city moved in that direction, I believe back in 2005. The revenue, the money that Recology receives from the sale of those recyclables does come back and is calculated as part of an offset to the overall rate. So residents do receive a credit for the funds that Recology receives for those recyclable materials. So similar to that benefit that the community receives, this program would provide a benefit in that the city residents could get compost for free. This next slide is just an overview of some of the examples of what would be allowed to be disposed of in the green waste bin under the organics program. A very quick overview and a comparison of San Bruno's rates to some other cities. You'll see that San Bruno, the most popular garbage bin size is a 32-gallon today, so that 32-gallon rate today is $24.34. The proposed rate adjustment to go into effect, the base rate adjustment for current services to go into effect on September 1st is 2.61%, would put the rate at $24.98. With the first rate adjustment that has been proposed for action this evening to begin the implementation of the organics program on January 1st, 2014, and that 4.48% rate adjustment, the 32-gallon can goes to a cost of $26.09. Now, I want to be clear that the proposed organics program does require an overall rate adjustment of 8.96%. However, the proposal is to phase that in over the first year of the program as the costs are incurred by Recology. So it wouldn't be an 8.96% rate adjustment on day one of the program, but over 3 different rate adjustments. So at the end of that rate adjustment, you would still have another 2.24% rate increase twice. The reason why the total rate is not seen here at the end of the 8.96% is due to the fact that Recology will be entitled to a rate adjustment next July as part of the franchise agreement. And so we don't know what that rate adjustment could be, and so we don't know with certainty what the rate will be at the end of the implementation of the organics rate in January 2015. So this just provides a perspective of where San Bruno falls, and also a comparison to those cities that are currently offering organics and those who are not offering organics. So this evening, we will have a public hearing. We have received written responses to the property owner notice that went out on May 24th. As of 5 o'clock this evening, we had received 347 written responses. There are 2 proposed ordinances that are for your consideration this evening. Ordinance A would authorize a rate adjustment for base services, existing base services, of 2.61%, effective September 1st, 2013. Ordinance B would authorize the organics program to begin on January 1st, 2014, and authorize the first rate adjustment of 4.48%. I also have a note here that a future amendment to the franchise agreement would be necessary if the council chose to move forward with organics, because we would have to basically integrate the service for the organic service into the existing franchise agreement. So if we do move forward with that, we will have to return at a future date with that amendment. So that concludes my portion of the presentation. I will hand it over to the city manager for a few additional comments.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up on the comments of the finance director having to do specifically with the written notice and protest process that I think has encouraged a large audience here tonight, and probably many people who would like to speak to you during the public hearing. And I wanted to, first of all, address the means by which the city council is informed of those protests and those comments that the city has received over the last 45 days, as well as address and reiterate on a couple of topics that presented themes in the written responses that the city received. As the finance director indicated, we received a total of 347 written pieces of mail that responded to the notice that we mailed out 45 days ago. Among those written items were a number of actual thoughtful letters and comments that residents wanted the City Council to know. For the audience purposes and for those viewing at home, I want to clarify that the City Council has received a copy of each and every one of the comments that were received, including photocopies of postcards that have a standard message on them. So both the letters that you received, as well as each and every one of the pieces of correspondence, have been copied and distributed to each of the City Council members. For the purposes of your consideration of this item before you tonight and returning to you for additional action at your next City Council meeting, the city typically reviews carefully every piece of response that we receive, and we count those. And again, we have totaled those up to 347. We've also made an analysis of the extent to which those protests comply with the specific provisions of Proposition 218 that call for those items to be to specifically identify the name of the property owner and the parcel number or the address. So again, while everything is reported to you and you receive everything and we count everything that has been received, were we to get into a situation where there would be a need to evaluate more carefully, there are certain rules that apply to what constitutes a legitimate protest. For the purposes of your consideration tonight, we would recommend to you that, again, you have 347 people who have corresponded with you in writing. Among the topics that the items that we've received by mail address are questions or comments about why do we need an organics program, particularly because it represents a new cost to the ratepayers. Among the items that are compelling in terms of, or that are informative in terms of the city's interest in moving forward with the implementation of an organics program, is the fact that this type of collection service is quickly becoming a standard in the solid waste collection and disposal industry, in part because throughout the state of California, there is a first under an older state law, AB 939, a mandated requirement for cities like ours to divert from landfills at least 50% of the waste stream. I'm pleased to report to you that the city of San Bruno does meet that statewide mandate, and in fact, at the current time, our diversion from landfills with our single stream recycling program and the efficient collection service that we currently operate is at a level of 56%. That's good news. Statewide, the state has adopted yet another objective, and that is for diversion of 75% of the waste stream from landfills via recycling and other methodologies of 75% by the year 2020. That's actually only about 7 years away from now, and requires a significant additional effort on the part of this city and other communities throughout the state of California. I mentioned that diversion via an organics program is quickly becoming a standard. It is certainly a standard already in our county, and currently of the 21 municipal jurisdictions, including the 20 cities and the unincorporated area of San Mateo County, 14 of those jurisdictions currently provide an organics collection program for their residents. One more is currently actively in process of soliciting an organics program. Two more will be considering it shortly, and of course this item is on your agenda tonight. The items that we've received in the mail further address issues about why do I need to have Recology provide a organics program. I already compost. This is the finance director indicated, and let me back up and say there are many individuals in our community who are already proactively initiating in their own households waste diversion programs, and we certainly applaud that and encourage that. Finance director indicated that among the purposes of this program is to make sure that organics collection and convenient waste diversion techniques are available throughout the community to every household, and that includes multifamily households, which number a pretty significant number in San Bruno, where the activity of composting is at least difficult, if not really impossible for the household. In addition, the program on a citywide basis, implementation of the program, provides a convenient and efficient way of diverting waste on a community-wide basis, and as I indicated, that's important to the community and to the state environmental goals. The other issues that were raised in the items that we received in the mail have to do with attraction of vermin or other complexities associated with maintaining the food waste in the green waste barrel. As the finance director indicated, there is not a huge difference between the fact that the food waste now would go into a different cart, with the exception of the fact that the plastic bag would not be allowed to contain the food waste in the green waste cart. Recology San Bruno advises us that there is information available to residents that will be provided as part of the implementation program to proactively advise and educate about how these types of issues, odor and vermin and other types of concerns that people may have, can be proactively addressed with some fairly simple management techniques that are easy for the household to implement via the green waste disposal can. Questions have been raised regarding the monies that Recology already receives and other waste haulers receive through their collection of recyclables. As you know, we have a single stream recyclable collection program that is heavily utilized in San Bruno today and is, as I indicated before, successfully diverting a large volume of waste away from the landfills. Recology does generate some money as a result of selling those recyclable materials, and although markets have fluctuated and the price that they can get for recyclables is actually not terribly high, any and all monies that are received by Recology for the sale of recyclables and others of their business activities related to services in San Bruno directly result in a lower rate requirement. So any revenues, any monies that Recology is able to obtain by selling recyclables goes directly back to paying for the costs of services that they provide in San Bruno, and thereby reducing the amount of cost that needs to be borne by ratepayers directly. And lastly, and this is an issue of, I'm sure, a very high level concern to the City Council, is the general concern or complaint that there are many households in the city of San Bruno, like elsewhere, who simply experience any rate increase to be a burden. That would not include only households that are currently existing on fixed incomes, but it does need to be recognized that additional costs can create a burden for households and may for some be simply unaffordable. The City of San Bruno offers a very significant discount to low-income families who can qualify. We accept applications through our utility billing office in the finance department at City Hall, and we evaluate those and implement that discount on an annual basis. In addition to that, the Recology San Bruno does offer a small toter, a small capacity toter, particularly for smaller households and or for individuals who are generating, households that are generating a particularly low level of waste. That 20-gallon toter comes at a discount price and is an option that is available to persons who can manage their waste stream with that technique. So we offer those as a couple of ideas about how households can more effectively manage the costs. With that, again, I would just emphasize that you have in front of you today, and including a large stack of items that were received in the mail just today. So you've just now received those, all 347 of the written comments that we've received from residents, and tonight's agenda includes a public hearing during which you are required to offer an opportunity to anybody who wishes to speak. And at the close of that public hearing, we will include any additional written comments that we receive in giving you a final count. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, have any questions of staff at this time before we open the public hearing? Okay. Considering the size of the crowd tonight, I've asked the clerk to provide some comment cards. It has your name, your street name, and your question. I'll read the question and we'll answer that question through staff or Recology, who happens to be here this evening. So do you have some more comment cards, Carol? And they're sitting right there at the door if you want to fill one out and give it to the clerk. Yeah, the mic is working. Can you hear it? Okay, this is good. All right, at this time I'd like to open the public hearing, and I'll start by reading these questions as I receive them. The first one is from Mr. Alan Lubke, and he says, Mr. Lubke, I'm going to read your question and get an answer for you.
I'd like to speak for myself, if you don't mind.
Well, you may, but it precludes this, and I'll give you 1 minute.
Why are you only giving me 1 minute?
Because of the size of the crowd.
That shouldn't make a difference. The tradition is that
You're
you get 3
wasting your
minutes.
time, Mr. Lubke.
Assuming that more than 50% of the 12,851 parcels in the city of San Bruno, subject to the proposed rate increase, and I'm not sure of the English here, if the city receives a protest from a majority, that would be 6. What would happen? What would be what's your protocol if before the end of this hearing that over half of the people object to Ordinance A and Ordinance B?
Okay, I'll get an answer for you. Is that all?
Well, yes. No, that's not all. I would like to know why the comments by the city manager weren't in the flyer. I mean, assuming I would like to I'd like to support this program, why wait until this public hearing to talk about compelling answers or compelling issues, one of which is 75% requirement by 2020. And then I object to the issue of not putting garbage in a plastic bag as opposed to just putting it in a plastic bag is in fact a huge difference, not a huge difference. Thank you. I appreciate your answer.
All right, thank you. I'll give that to staff regarding what would happen if more than 50% of the property owners decided to. I'm going to get an answer for you. Also, in the Recology flyer that was mailed to every household, it says right here, adding an organics program to save your weekly services will help San Bruno meet the statewide goal of diverting 75% of our waste from the landfill. So that was actually in the flyer. No, it doesn't.
If the city were to receive a 50% plus one, a majority protest in writing with the name of the property owner and the identification of the parcel in San Bruno, the city council would be precluded from taking an action to enact a rate increase.
Okay, thank you. Next is Joe Yankee. Why a 4.5% increase, same amount of garbage? I think that was the answer, but yeah, I just wanted to let people know that you did ask it. So, Patricia Merzen. What ways has the city of San Bruno studied to offset the cost of organic recycling besides raising the rates?
As the finance director indicated, we have reviewed the program in detail through a third-party expert with experience in solid waste collection and disposal programs. And that expert review has demonstrated to us that the program offers an efficient and effective way of dealing with the implementation of the program. I'm not answering, I'm not specifically addressing the what did we do to do it without a rate increase, because in fact implementation of this kind of program on a community-wide scale, we know of no viable alternatives for doing that without a rate increase. However, we have addressed the program and the cost efficiency of the program, keeping the cost at the lowest possible amount by virtue of the third-party evaluation and continued dialogue between the expert as well and Recology as well as our staff to satisfy ourselves that this program is being done in the most efficient and cost-effective way possible.
Thank you. Could you? Thank you. Thank you. Step to the podium, please, and just make it brief, if you would.
The reason I asked what ways have been studied to offset the cost of the organics was it doesn't sound like, it sounds like a rubber stamp of Recology's request for a rate increase as opposed to studying or different ways that the monies could be found. Was my point. So it sounds like we haven't thought about how can we raise more money so that the increase doesn't have to be as high as it is.
I would, it doesn't directly answer your question, but I would add that the outside party that we did engage to review this rate proposal, we engaged them not just to look through the mechanics of the numbers itself, but the mechanics of the program and the delivery of the program as it was proposed by Recology. So when Recology brought this forward and said that this new program would require 3 new routes, 2 to serve the residential community, 1 new route to serve the commercial community. We wanted an outside expert with familiarity in this area to tell us whether or not that was legitimate and that those 3 routes were in fact necessary to service the entire community. So that is what was performed, was that type of analysis to confirm that the mechanics of the program and the dollars associated with those additional routes.
Then that was one subject matter expert, and I would be curious to know or find out what other types of companies that have put this in progress, was it necessary for them to do an 8% increase, or were there other ways and means that they used to do it? And I don't think it's been studied. It doesn't sound like it's been studied long enough, and enough. It's been looked at enough different ways to me.
All right. Why don't we do this? We have representatives from Ecology. Kirsten, if you could go to the podium, because I think you're going to have to answer some of these questions. I know that this is a new program in San Bruno, but maybe you could give a little background as to what Recology does in other cities and the track record.
Sure. As the finance director and the city manager stated that many cities in our community are utilizing the program currently. We did reach out to our other communities to find out, to gain some expertise on how to make this program as efficient as possible. We did work with the addresses in San Bruno to route and reroute many different scenarios to find the best method that would work best for the residents of San Bruno. And we did dwindle it down to just 2 routes, which is, it'll be effective, it'll be a full day for the drivers, and we didn't, we could have spread it out to 3 and made it kind of, a little easier, but we tried to be as efficient and effective as possible, and did route and reroute these routes as tight as we could before we delivered this to the city.
Thank you. Next is Bella Dagovich. Okay. How do you think the Recology will work? The experience in Newark did not work and was reversed. If this is the reason to increase the rates, you better find a more doable solution. I don't know how we can answer this, but maybe it didn't work in Newark, but I know it works in a lot of other cities. So
yeah, look, I just consulted with Recology to learn that we are not aware of the situation in Newark. We can certainly gather more information about that for the City Council. If members of the audience have that information, we would certainly be interested in receiving it. Our understanding, consulting with many of our neighbors and others throughout the broader Bay Area region, is the programs have been very successfully implemented, and that in fact Recology is receiving requests not only from commercial businesses in San Bruno, but from residential households who are interested in having the type of program that our neighbors in other communities have.
Okay. Mike, it looks like Brainy. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Yeah. I disapprove of the composting program rate increase for garbage company Recology. So there's. If you could make it brief, please, to the podium.
I noticed the rates posted for the different cities.
Speak right into that, Mike.
I'm sorry. The rates posted for the different cities. I find that hard to compare just because the geographic size, the demographics of the different cities, number of residences and number of commercial businesses, the population. So that to me is an unfair comparison. Different companies, I don't know if Recology does them all or not. The other question I have is the process that's used with these flyers is, it's stated in there 50% or majority, of the buildings here. Why didn't you include, say, a postcard, reply card that people could reply with, whether they agree or disagree with rate increases with an organics program? To me, that seems like that'd be a fair way to do it. It's not the same as an election on a bond or something like that, but at least you can almost have a majority response in that process rather than requiring people to show up here, sign their letters, send them in with the required information and their comment or whatever. To me, that doesn't sound like a fair process. I don't know what city ordinances or your constitution says how you approve these type of ordinances that ultimately cost more to the
the city population.
Let me get an answer from the city attorney, but I believe San Bruno went actually out of its way regarding the notification of this, and maybe the city attorney can explain that.
Right, the notification process is actually prescribed by state law and not by any city ordinance. State law says that the process required is called a protest hearing, so it's not an election where you're voting for things in favor or against. It's only a process by which people have a right to protest a particular action. So the notice that we sent to all of the parcel owners in San Bruno was an effort to comply with state law, so because state law says that every parcel owner gets a vote. We actually made our notice slightly broader than that because we also said if you're a Recology customer, you can submit a protest as well. And so we try to encourage the maximum participation of not only property owners who may or may not live in the city, but also Recology customers. So the process does comply with state law. It's not a requirement that the city has any say over how to comply with it.
Okay, it just seems to me it's a one-sided process because we don't really have a say. You guys ultimately make the call on this. And you said you used the word vote. There's no vote. This just doesn't seem like a fair process and a democratic process to me.
All right. Well, I don't want to give you more time than anybody else, but
right.
let me say a couple things. When you talked about comparing one city to another, yeah, it's not going to be apples and apples, but we always try, whether it be water rates or garbage rates or any other kind of rate, to give you a comparison because ultimately we get the questions, you know, my sister lives in so-and-so and she pays less than you. Or we try to give you some type of a comparison, even though it's really not a fair one because the peninsula is so diverse as far as the type of people that live in certain cities, the wealth factor in certain cities, the microclimates in certain cities. Recology here in San Bruno has some real challenges because we have a flat land here and we have some hills that maybe aren't the same as in maybe a Foster city. So it's not a fair comparison, but it gives you an idea of what in fact you and I are putting out of our pockets. So I understand your question, but we try to give you some type of a comparison. And San Bruno, for the most part, has always been kind of in the middle of all of that. You can see some cities, and you know, maybe they're wealthier than ours, but they're paying almost twice as much. So that's that comment there. Tried to be as fair as we can to get the word out. We had you know, this flyer sent out to you a long time ago. We really didn't have to do a lot of this, but in fairness, we wanted to get the word out, especially because this organics program is unique, and in fact, it's going to have to happen if we're going to reach that diversion rate of 75% by 2020. So there's a pilot program going to start, I think, this week, actually, in certain neighborhoods that were picked by Recology to see how, in fact, it's going to work. So they'll get some feedback before it's actually implemented. That's what I can tell you there. The next one is Mr. Rico. I'm not sure I understand. It says item 9 left, not on the agenda.
I want to speak on item 9, not on.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fine. That's fine. It looks like Perry Peterson, garbage, no increase, Prop 218, bogus.
Thank you. I think I'll start with a little bit of my background. I've been on the Recycle Commission in the city of Oakland for several years. So I was introduced to the earlier legislated requirement to divert 50% of the waste stream. And for that matter, I would like to recommend to the city of San Bruno that they form a recycling commission, because it's very likely, I believe, that you could divert a lot more than you have. You only have diverted 56%, which is 6% above the absolute minimum that was required. I think there must be some missed opportunities here. Secondly, the reason I said Prop 218 is bogus is because I agree, it's the law, and you followed it with you even exceeded your requirement as your attorney says. But as a practical matter, Prop 218 pretends to be a vote of the people. It pretends to be a vote. Your notice was not even a proper notice in that it was buried inside a lot of other material. It wasn't a separate mailing. There was no postcard to send back. There was no envelope to put any note in. So it's a miracle that you got 347 messages from citizens. Many of them probably, like myself, believe this was a slam dunk. Don't fight City Hall. It's a done deal. I believe that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that. I think you should shelve the 8.9% and give it another look. Having raw garbage in those cans, it can be a rodent problem, if not increasing the crow population past its already nightmarish increase in San Bruno. I just think it's not, I don't think it's the right thing. I have never seen a public hearing held in the fashion this one has been, where the chair reads summary comments of individuals who believed that they were filling out speakers cards and then said, I'll read these, and if you want to say something, you can. I think that's part of a process. It gives every appearance of a board, a council that has already made up its mind on this matter. This whole hearing is almost a charade simply because you need 50%, a 50% protest vote in writing by today to be successful. It's almost impossible. Davis, California, went through this process on a similar issue, and they got out of their 11,000 property owners, I think they got something like 4,000. That was really remarkable. And they're still up in arms about it there. So, in summary, I thank you very much for your time. I hope you vote not to go ahead with this. This is a 10% increase in rates. It might as well be made on day one. Introducing it over a year, well, you could introduce it over 2 years if you waited 1 month more for the third increase. I'm disappointed.
Okay. Thank you. To Recology, there was a specific question about raw garbage and potential for rodents and things. Maybe you can address that?
Sure. We are going to have on our website, again, we were able to reach out to our other communities that currently utilize the organics program and get tips from them as to what their residents are doing to prevent the vermin or the rodents from getting into their green container. So we are going to put that up by this evening, actually. It's already up there. And again, you're just moving it from one cart to another. It is already at the curb, but we do understand that there are animals that can come around, but again, we're going to provide you plenty of tips. Then you can pick and choose the ones that you might want to try to prevent the animals.
All right, thank you. And just for the record, this is not a slam dunk, and we don't do anything behind closed doors. I mean, Mr. Peterson, you should know better than anybody else, having been involved with lots of committees and stuff in this city. So I just want to say that. Thank you. Very quick.
I did not say behind closed doors, and I reject that concept. Right. I think you do hold public hearings.
All right, thank you. All right. Val Morgan has an objection to the garbage collection rate increase.
Yeah,
at the podium, please. So you at the podium.
I don't have a question as such, just a couple of comments, and I'll be very brief. My name is Val Morgan. I live at Shelter Creek, and I'm vice president on the board up there. And part of the board's responsibility to our residents is to keep increases at a minimum to avoid large increases in dues to our owners. We run a very tight ship at Shelter Creek with the help of our management. We draw up accurate budgets and we usually stick to them very, very closely. Part of our, in fact, in recent years, we had 2 years where we had no increase in rates at all, even despite the economic problems at the moment. Our utility expenses to the city and PGE are amongst our biggest ticket items. And we constantly try and economise on all of these items like electricity, water and so on to keep costs down. In fact, at the moment we have a huge programme going on where we're changing all our toilets to the low flush toilets to economise on water. And this is just one of many things that we're doing. But all of our efforts to keep costs down seem to be futile because the city and PG&E costs keep going up the whole time, no matter what we do. We try and economise, save, be as cost saving as possible, but it just doesn't seem to work. So on the face of it, this vote on the increase seems like it's democratic if more than 50% vote against it. But even in a general election, we hardly get 50% turnout of the vote. So at this juncture on this particular item, hoping to get 50% turnout to vote is practically impossibility. I agree with the last speaker. I don't think it's a democratic process. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim? I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Rico?
Real quick, the gentleman just spoke for Shelter Creek, and you're right, from the toilets to the angle stops, you're doing that program within Shelter Creek. Was there not a meeting with the Ecology, with the associations of
Yes.
that? Can you maybe?
Yes.
I know I was informed of that this afternoon, so I just wanted to bring that forward in case not everybody's heard.
Yes, we did. My Waste Zero specialist and myself met with the general manager from Shelter Creek and the general manager from Peninsula Place to kind of come together to talk about the rate increase and some things that we can do to help the multifamilies at those locations. We did make some modifications, and when he talks about the replacement of the low flow toilets, that's fantastic. We've also arranged with Ronnie at Shelter Creek that we're going to do a quarterly pickup of the, similar to what the residents, the single family homes get, they get the twice annual bulky item cleanup. We want to make sure that the multifamily residents at the large complexes can enjoy that item as well. So quarterly we're going to offer a debris box to Shelter Creek at no additional cost to take away some of the bulkier items of the Shelter Creek residents. We're also going to assist with the diversion of their landscape material at Shelter Creek, and we're going to haul their landscaping material at no additional cost. So we're trying to work together as a team to help offset, a rate increase such as this in such a large complex that is really doing everything they can to recycle and divert and work with Recology.
Thank you. Doris Mays, protest against garbage rate increase to implement organics program. Doris, you want to comment, or I'm happy to read your letter.
Okay, I have a couple.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, thanks for the opportunity. Can you hear me?
I can. She might have to turn it up a little bit.
I'm not sure how to do that. Anyway, the points I made in my letter were that there are some unintended consequences of this action. The fact that there's another set of trucks going around the city, that increases the fuel consumption. It also adds to air pollution because diesel trucks have good gas emissions. And also, there's greenhouse gas emissions from their fuel use. All right, so that's an unintended consequence. Also, another unintended consequence is that how do we know what actual effect the organics program has on waste reduction to the landfill? There's other cities that have been doing this for, I don't know, a year or so, maybe a couple of years. There ought to be some data available for that to present to the public and to the council. that justifies that, the increased cost. And simply the wear on the streets, by more trucks on the streets. You know, those are just things to consider. Also, just human beings being who they are. They're going to hose out their waste containers on their driveway. And that will go to the stormwater. It's not something they should do, but who's going to enforce that? Are you going to hire another policeman to enforce that? No, of course not. So I just want you to consider that it's not the best solution to the problem. I'd like to know whether, in fact, it will achieve more reduction, significant enough to offset the cost. And also, you know, one of the things that we're doing in the wrong direction. We're increasing collections. Frankly, we should be reducing collections, because that would really start to look at the real cost to the environment of having waste collection on a frequent basis. And if you compost, which it's possible even under your kitchen sink with a worm composting bin, so you don't necessarily have to have a yard to be able to do that. I appreciate your attention. Thank you.
All right, thank you. In You Should Know Recology, I'm going to ask you to comment on this. The subcommittee, and we do a lot of research in subcommittee before we bring it here, and a lot of those questions were in fact asked and answered. First of all, about your fleet. Is it a solid diesel fleet, or what do you have now?
Right now we operate a 20% biodiesel fleet.
Okay.
So we do use biodiesel fuel.
And that's increasing? I mean, the fleet is, you're slowly
Yes.
building it up.
Yes.
But still, particular emissions are a problem no matter what.
Sure. Again, when we were routing these routes, we tried to reduce the amount of trucks, added trucks that were going to go through the city of San Bruno, which is why we're only having to add 2 to the overall program. In order to offset, I don't know if the offset's the right word, but when we're moving the food waste out of the gray can and putting it into the green, it's then being processed properly at a processing facility where all the methane gases that would normally just go out into the landfill and into our air is now going to be captured. So environmentally, we're moving the methane gas. We're not going to let it go out into the landfills where it's going now when your food waste is in the garbage. We're going to now process it, capture and process it properly. When she spoke about the success of the programs, most of the cities that we can relate to up and down the peninsula have all rolled out organics simultaneously with single stream recycling. So I don't have concrete numbers to say this city rolled it out independently like San Bruno is hoping to compare it to. I don't know of a magic number that I'd like it to get to. Other cities up and down the peninsula with their single stream recycling program are showing high diversion numbers. But again, I can't compare, I don't have an apple and apple to compare to, something that would be relative to the community.
Do you have any comment or experience with cleaning the cans?
Cleaning of the cans, that customers rinse them out, goes into their yard, or they can spray them. They don't have to do it every week. It's not something that has to be done weekly. They can spray. Again, we'll have tips on our website to kind of give you a vinegar and water concoction that you can kind of spray on the lid of your can or around the sides of your can, and only wash it quarterly if necessary.
Okay, and the question came up a while ago regarding the containment of the organics, not in plastic bags. We have a plastic bag ordinance. It's hard to even get a plastic bag at the store anymore. But is there anything else we can contain it in so it just doesn't get thrown in with grass clippings?
Yes, you can, in the kitchen pail that all the residents and multifamily residents would receive, you can put some newspaper in there. You can use a paper bag inside your container. And once you put it into your green waste, when it's sprinkled, and you're also allowed to put paper napkins and paper towels, those items will also absorb a lot of the moisture that your food will contain. So using those products and putting them into your green waste with your leaves should obtain a lot of the moisture that comes out of the food.
All right, and we have a prop.
This is the prop. This will be Felicia Nearby, Waste Area Specialist with Recology San Bruno. This will be the kitchen pail
that all residents will receive. There's a couple different ways that you can use it. You can line it with whatever method you prefer. If you have plastic bags, you can line them with plastic bags. You can line the bottom with paper towels, newspaper, paper plates, anything that can absorb liquid so it doesn't sit on the bottom and get smelly and messy. You can use paper bags, like we said, wrap your food scraps in newspaper. An alternative to the kitchen pail, it doesn't work for everybody. Some people don't have counter space for it. In cases like that, or those that want to try something else, you can freeze your food scraps. I've spoken with a lot of other residents. It sounds silly. I will. It is an alternative for those that don't like this idea. If you have room in your freezer and want to give it a shot, freezing your food scraps and putting them into your green cart the night you roll it out, it does stop the decomposition of the food, and you don't have that smell or the liquid. It's all frozen and it goes straight in your green cart and is picked up the next day. It's an alternative to think about, but this is the kitchen pail that you can use. I also wanted to make a comment about the difference between our curbside compost program and the backyard compost program. We too want to encourage those that are already composting to continue to do that. The difference with the curbside program is we can collect meats, bones, and dairy products. Those products you don't want to put in your backyard composting because they will attract vermin and insects and cause a whole lot of other issues for you. We can collect them curbside. So if you're already composting at home and don't want to stop that program, you can participate at the smaller level and just include those products that you cannot put in your backyard composting. So just want to clarify those differences.
Thank you. Next is Mary Stucker. It's very lengthy. Maybe you could just come to the podium and try to get it done that way.
Because I included some comments about the water too, which shouldn't have been on there. So
Okay,
I
speak right
apologize.
into the microphone.
Yes. So I just want to protest the increase. I'm a single person in my house, and I have this huge green bin that I put out maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And I think there's probably a lot of other smaller households here that also don't use it every other week because also I've done yard work where I've decreased all of my plants to water-worthy plants, so I don't have a lot of green waste either. So for the single family or the single person or the 1 or 2 retired folks that live in these smaller households, I think it's unfair to pay this full amount for a service that we're not going to use all the time. I see the low-income people are going to get discounts for things. I see big apartment buildings are going to get discounts, but us 1 or 2 person households still have to pay the same amount when we aren't using this service. So, and then again, if we're taking, all of the folks here who do have bigger households, taking a lot of the waste out of their smaller garbage bin and putting it in the big one, they should certainly get a discount for their smaller garbage can that they won't be using as much, or decrease their bin for that. So,
okay, thank you. Is there a reduction in the rate with the size of the can? Ecology.
Yes, I did want to clarify that we're not giving the multifamilies any discounts. We're only giving them what single-family residents are already getting. So I just kind of wanted to clarify that. You can make a movement from a 32-gallon if you're successful in this program. You may, in moving your food scraps into the green, you'll find your gray cart is getting less full. You may migrate into the 20-gallon. So there is still an option to participate in this program and still reduce your costs by reducing the size of your cart.
Right, and just for the record, the 20-gallon is cheaper than the 32.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Michael, 321 Cortland.
Freeze my food scraps?
Right in the microphone. Thank you.
Freeze my food scraps? I mean, really, you guys. The PG&E's tell us we got to cut back here and there and now. I honestly can't believe the baloney that I'm being fed here. Freeze my food scraps? I mean, so my PG bill is going to go up, so I could pay these guys more money. I mean, I'm glad I'm not wearing my hip waders, but I surely would need them here tonight. And, serious, folks. I mean, this is like ridiculous. And whatever time I get left, I want to yield it to the next person. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather Lata. Heather? Heather said, I would like to speak to support the organic program.
Hi, thank you. Hello, thank you for allowing us to speak. I just wanted to come tonight with my husband, Jeremy. We just moved to San Bruno and bought a house here last year. And we actually moved from another municipality in the Bay Area that did already have composting, and we did miss the opportunity to do municipal composting when we moved to San Bruno because we found that it was incredibly convenient, and we really appreciated the ability that we had as a household to minimize our impact on the environment on a weekly basis for really minimal additional cost. And so we are very supportive of the city doing this, and we had been concerned because of the way the flyer was sent out that only people who were protesting the initiative were going to be coming tonight, and so we just want to make sure that you also heard alternate voices who would support the program and support the city's ability to meet its 75% requirement. At the same time, I am incredibly sympathetic to all of the people who are concerned about cost increases. And I do have a question. I don't know if this would be for Recology or the city manager, but you had mentioned earlier, the finance manager perhaps had, that with single stream recycling, there were rate decreases that came back to people. But for this program, it seems like we'll just get compost, which for my husband and I who garden, that would be great. And maybe that would be an offset, and maybe we'd even make more off of it. But I wonder if the organic material is being sold to local farms or somehow sold, if there'd be a way to have rate decreases in the future instead of just the compost material. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can we get an answer to that one?
If I might clarify, there was not a rate decrease that was implemented as a result of recyclables being sold by Recology, but rather some money collected by Recology that then pays for services and allows for lower increases over time. So there wasn't necessarily a decrease in the rate, but any monies that Recology receives as a result of services in San Bruno, including the sale of recyclables, offsets costs associated with the delivery of the services. The idea about, I think the idea was selling compost, and that may be just one of the benefits of this program, and one of the services that is currently offered by Recology is the availability to residents of San Bruno of a high-quality compost that results from the program. Whether there will be an opportunity to generate sufficient compost such that that could become a money-making venture for Recology, I'm sure that that would be something that the company would like to look into and would certainly implement if there's an opportunity to do that.
All right, I'd like to ask Recology to comment on that too, because you have organics programs in a lot of other cities. So what happens with those huge piles of compost?
Where we take our organic material to be processed, I don't have numbers, but I can say that overall, when they sell the overall compost to the farmers and such, the sales from that compost helps reduce our overall processing costs that we have to pay the processor. So if they didn't sell to the farmers and whatnot, our cost to them may be that much higher. So it's kind of similar to our single stream. We're getting the sales and we're pushing it back to the residents. They're selling the compost and then reducing the processing costs for us in terms, and I can pass on a lower processing cost to the residents.
Okay, where is that compost available?
It's going to be made available to the residents. We will bring a compost giveaway to the city of San Bruno annually. And to give you a preview, we're actually going to have a booth at the farmers market on July 28th, and we'll have compost readily available then.
Thank you. Paul, and I can't It's hard for me to read your last name. You're on Pepper Drive. Paul still here?
Yep.
Paul?
First off, to the gentleman's point over here, where he's talking about this not being democratic, it is democratic, but you called it our program, which kind of assumes that it's going to be a done deal. Out of the 350 responses that you got, you didn't tell us how many of them were negative, how many were positive. Could you give us that answer?
346 were opposed to the rate increase, and 1 was in favor.
I think that's pretty telling, and I think not everybody's talked yet, but I think we're all in the same position. We don't like this. It's 10% increase, and you also said that we don't know what the future increases are going to be. If it's not cost effective, we shouldn't spend the people's money, which is our money, or the money that we earn, to pay for something that has no value other than it's going to make compost that's going to get sold to somebody, and we don't know how much that gets, how much revenue that makes, and how much it's going to reduce our costs. Yet we already know how much our rates are going to go up, but we don't know how much the offset is. So if you can't answer that question, I think it's something we ought to think about before we go down this road. The other thing you said, it was a state goal. Is it a state law, a state requirement? We already exceed the goal, so why are we doing it? It doesn't make sense to me that we have to do something just because you just want us to feel good about saving stuff. The other thing is the 20-gallon container. I have that already to save $5 a month, but I don't even fill that up. So if my gray garbage is going down and my green garbage is going to go up, it's a zero-sum game where I still have the same amount of garbage. But is that gray garbage and our footprint in the landfill cost going to go down? If that's going down, then why are we paying for that landfill? It should be a cost, I guess, what's the right word for it? We're spending less money filling up landfill, so our cost should go down. It shouldn't be a 10% increase.
All right, thank you. Any comment, Recology, on how rates are figured? I know that you pass them on, and everyone should know that not only Recology figures this out, but we do independent audits, and a lot of things factored into this, and a lot of that has to do with the charge that is put on Recology and other garbage companies to actually dump. So maybe you can make some comments there.
Yes, during the rate process that we delivered to the city of San Bruno, it did take into consideration a migration factor. So we do realize that less waste is going to go to the landfill, but that particular waste is now going to be processed as organic. So we did reduce the landfill, what we would pay to the landfill, and took into consideration then what we would need to pay to the processor. So we did shift the pendulum. Is that right? Shift the pendulum one way down and the other way up. So we did take that into consideration.
All right, but the fact is that it doesn't go into the landfill. It actually gets at a cost to everybody. It actually gets used for something instead of just being buried, I guess.
Yes. So yeah, we know. So less is going to be buried, and more that is going to be processed into organic material.
Okay, and it's not just the cost of landfill, as everybody knows. It has to do with you just see the cost of fuel alone for some of these trucks, and there are a lot of factors. It's pages and pages and pages of facts and figures that are in fact independently audited by independent auditors hired by the city. So it's nothing that Recology submits to us and we just take their word. So you should know that we watch it very carefully, and some of the subcommittee meetings are a little active and heated. But anyway, are there any more cards, Carol?
The gentleman asked about it was a state goal or requirement in regards to the 75% in 2020.
Happy to answer that question.
Is it a requirement or is it a goal?
She's going to answer it.
I'm happy to answer that question. AB 939 that was adopted in the late 1980s was a requirement. As I indicated, we have, in the city of San Bruno, have met that requirement. The current state law calls for a goal of 75% to be implemented by the year 2020. What I would expect in terms of the way that the state does business and its implementation of this type of standard and others is that it will continue to monitor and evaluate the statewide performance towards the achievement of that goal. We could expect that if progress is not seen as satisfactory or adequately progressive, that we might expect that that could turn into a mandate or a requirement similar to the one that was imposed a number of years ago under AB 939, where actually there were $10,000 a day penalties and the like. But very specifically, the 75% diversion by the year 2020 is currently articulated in state law as a goal.
Okay, thank you.
If they don't have data on the actual reduction, how did they make that calculation as to the diversion from the landfill to the...
The question was, if they don't have data on the actual reduction, how can they make that calculation?
We took data from our neighboring cities that have the program, and what we used was their shift in when they reduced from a 32-gallon with the program implemented, how many shifted from a 64-gallon to a 32-gallon, and how many shifted from a 32-gallon to a 20-gallon. So it's not an exact science, it's an estimate. I hope the city of San Bruno exceeds that estimate in their diversion.
Well, we're on camera here, so I'd like you to speak into the mic. And if you haven't filled out a card, at least tell us your name and your street, please.
I'm Susan Caudill, and I'm on Hawthorne. My question is, when was the last waste characterization? So we know exactly how much organics are in the waste stream. So we can then determine how much will be taken out to meet the requirement. And where are the organics processed?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to ask Felicia. I don't have the data of when the last waste characterization was taken from the gray cans in San Bruno. I can certainly look back to see when the last one was done. I don't have the date here. The organics is processed in Gilroy. No.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. I'm sorry, I can't. You want to add something? Please come up to the mic. And tell us your name and street again, please. And pull that down, right? There you go.
My name is Bela Dagovic. I am on Monterey Drive. And I have two questions. First of all, everybody talks about the increase, and nobody talks about the practicality of the thing. Our containers are not suited for that. We will have flies, we will have rodents, we will have everything. And when a wind blows, they come open, and then what? So we need new containers for that. We need containers which would lock up and not open when it's windy. Otherwise, you will have it spread all over. It will be a disaster. And how many people can divide everything in organic, not organic, and recycling is okay. But the food, we have to have special containers for home and outside. And this is only can happen if you help with that. We need new containers, and this will cost again. So it should be solved as a total problem, not just a piece of this and a piece of that. If we don't have a full understanding how it will work, we can't take, this ordinance and put it September or January or whenever. We have to be sure that this works and works to our advantage, not disadvantage. So please take it into consideration.
All right, thank you.
Because I can envision the mess which we will have.
All right, thank you. to Recology, again, we do have little microclimates here in San Bruno, hills and flatlands. I know, does San Francisco have the organic program?
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
And they have the same situation there. How does it work? Tell us about containers. Are there plans to change containers, the configuration, that type of thing in the future? And I think the flyer and probably the website talks about yard waste, food waste, and soil paper products pretty well. So I don't think there's a whole lot that is not included in that, but maybe you could explain that a little bit more.
Sure. The containers that you currently have at your residential homes will suffice and accept the food material. We use the same containers as they do in San Francisco and up and down San Mateo County. In response to how do we know if it's going to work, we're getting a lot of people come to San Bruno to work. We have Walmart, we have YouTube, we have big companies here where customers come from other cities and from San Francisco to work. They're asking their employer, why can't I compost here in San Bruno? Why can't I do it? I love doing it at my home. I want to do it here. This is kind of where we got to the point of offering the program when we needed to help with the diversion. We also said, you know what, a lot of people coming here to work and residents are reaching out to asking when San Bruno is going to move towards organics. The city, San Francisco, they do not lock their containers. Up and down the peninsula, nobody locks their containers. If they've had any kind of problems, they've worked to resolve them, whether they are doing the baking soda or the other tips that we've recommended. It's working in the other cities that have organics currently.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Quickly, because we don't want this to get helter-skelter here. Tell us your name and your street, please.
Patty Fanjang. I'm first time in the council meeting, but I look on this important program. I see that only look the chart over there. It's very obviously only San Bruno city have increased. Look at other city, 4 city, all this listed out there. From the 32 gallon today and have that organic that one, it's the same amount. So why only San Bruno will increase? If you keep the same rate, we are very welcome to this program. So please consider.
Yeah, maybe to Recology again, I don't think this shows the fluidity, if you will, of rate increases up and down the peninsula. It's a sort of a static graph at this point in time, but believe me, other cities are increasing. They're doing the same thing. So.
Yeah, I actually will answer that question. This graph just takes the data as of this point in time. It does not consider any future rate increases in other jurisdictions because we're not entirely certain what those rate increases and that schedule is different. So it's meant to only be compared to this point in time. So these rates are the rates in these other cities today. We don't know if come January 2014 whether or not they will have also introduced a rate increase. So I just want to be clear on why that appears the way it does.
Okay. Got to make it quick now because you've been up a few times.
Got it.
Yeah.
So we collect the organics and then we put them in a truck and we drive them to Gilroy. And then we get the compost from Gilroy and we drive it back to San Bruno. I just want to get clear on this. That's what we do?
She'll answer the question.
Yes, the compost is collected at the curb by a truck and it goes into the truck. We take it to our transfer station in San Bruno, where it's then loaded into a semi. The semi then delivers the material to the processor. Then we will, when we're ready, we will backhaul. So we don't need to send another truck. We'll use that same truck to then bring the organic material to the compost giveaway. So we're going to be very efficient and backhaul. While we're already there, we're going to then dump it here and then go pick up some compost and bring it back.
There's no closure processing.
There is not. It'll be an agreed upon location between Recology and the city.
The question was, where will the compost giveaway be?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Carolyn? Carolyn, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, I have a comment. I am opposed to this for various reasons, but I won't go into that. What I am concerned about is not having these cans locked. We've had a lot of wind, as you know, and we particularly have it up on the hill. And I recently had a very bad experience where both my cans went over. I put them out in the morning, and about 4 o'clock I put them out because I thought it'd be safe. At 5:30 I was out there trying to pick it all up, and at that time I was still recuperating from a hip and back situation, and I had to go out there by myself. The stuff, I not only had my garbage and my trash all over, but I had everybody else in the neighborhood in my front yard, and I was out there in that wind and cold trying to pick that stuff up. So if you're going to jam this down our throat, at least make it so that we don't have problems.
Are there lockable containers, Kirsten?
There are lockable containers out there, but they would need to be unlocked in order to be serviced by Recology.
So the truck couldn't pull up and just load it up and throw it in?
Because they'd be locked. If they were unlocked, yeah, so you can do whatever you need to do to your container during the week and overnight, but it needs to be serviceable by 6 a.m. on service day.
Okay, thank you.
Heidi Beck, Acacia Avenue. I'd also like to complain about the containers. You know, I live near City Park. It's very, very windy in our neighborhood, and also because I live near City Park, we have an incredible amount of trouble with vermin and people going through the trash and whatever. So it's a mess, and we have 3 cans now to deal with. We used to only have 1 can, and you know, we had the recycling bins. Now we have 3 cans. I live in a neighborhood where a lot of people don't have side yards. Well, I know according to the city ordinance, you're not supposed to keep your garbage cans out front, but people don't have side yards, and you've got 3 big heavy cans. Our yard, for example, I was told, oh, just keep it in your garage. Well, we have one of those houses where the garage is, you know, under bedrooms. It's part of the house. You want to have stinky garbage under your bedroom? No, I don't think so. Oh, well, then put it in your backyard. Well, my backyard, the large green can barely fits through my back door to the backyard, plus I have stairs to the backyard. I'm supposed to lug that thing up and down the stairs? You know, we need something to help people because, I mean, I'm still strong enough, but I'm going to be a senior citizen before too long. And what do people do with these big, heavy cans that are hard to maneuver, that blow over in the wind? Our neighborhood always looks like crap on garbage day because garbage cans blow over or get knocked over by raccoons. All the crows come from the, you know, and the seagulls. I mean, they have a feast in our neighborhood. And, you know, it's just a mess. And that's what I'd like to complain about. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm afraid there's not a whole lot we can do about seagulls, and I mean, the giants have the same problem, but it's because we live in a pretty diverse community. Diverse, I mean, older homes, smaller homes, larger homes, no garages, a lot more cars per unit, and it's windy at times, and there's not a whole lot we, in fact, can do about that. So it's just a fact. We used to have 3 bins where you'd put stuff in uncovered, and that was, I think, at that time a lot worse. So we have come a long way with the single-stream recycling can, and that's an improvement, but we're always striving to work with Recology to improve the situation. So, and let's just wrap it up with you. Can you tell us your name and your street, please?
1 minute. I just want Nick DeMario from 370 Cortland Drive. I just want to second all the problems that we've been having with garbage blowing around. In my letter to the city, I proposed we provide some sort of a hasp or locking mechanism. You don't have to lock it with the, you know, for security reason. We just want to make sure it doesn't open during the wind. And that's what I propose to do in addition to, I don't want to talk about the other issues. It's been well covered.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. This is a public hearing. If we close the public hearing, you're going to be precluded from speaking on this again. Is that it? Do I have a motion to close?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second. Motion and second on the question. In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Discussion by the council, action by the council.
through the chair.
Michael?
Just wanted to make a few comments. So one thing that comes to mind, there was a comment regarding this program failing in another city, and so I just wanted to highlight the point that if we do make this commitment, the majority of the cost that's incurred is for the purchase of 2 new vehicles, and so the solution becomes somewhat permanent. So I just wanted to highlight that because one of the initial considerations was that we do a pilot program prior to having to make this discussion, and then as we studied this further, it became obvious that this is probably a program that we should support. And so we didn't necessarily defer the decision to vote on it at this point. And so that pilot program may be coming a bit late, and so we hope to get real data from that pilot program. But if we make a decision to let Recology proceed and they purchase their vehicles, it's not something that we can easily take back. So I just wanted to highlight that as part of our decision-making process, that it won't be as easy to take that back. And that also, I wanted to comment on the fact that we had studied this to some extent. That there is some perception that perhaps we're rushing into this and we haven't studied this. But this option came to us last year, and because of the fact that I felt that we didn't have enough information, we decided not to implement it last year. And we held off, and we asked Recology to go back and collect more information, and I wanted to do some of my own research, and I think we've all become a little bit more familiar with the programs, with similar programs in other cities, and how it can be implemented and what the real costs are. We had an opportunity to go back and have an independent audit on what was going on and whether or not the costs were fair. And so I just wanted to assure the public that we have done to our best ability some level of evaluation of this. We have studied it. Could we have studied it more? Absolutely. But we certainly don't want to get into a situation where we do nothing and simply study the problem over and over again and never take any action. I personally felt that there was enough empirical data gathered from what other cities are doing and enough interest from the public in adopting this program. I still feel that the adoption rate is going to be very low initially, and I don't dispute that that's going to be the case. Old habits are hard to break. Many years ago, I lived in San Francisco where this program was being rolled out, and I know it wasn't very popular, but it was slowly adopted, and over time, it became the norm. I've seen this program in place at a number of large companies up and down the peninsula where employees are encouraged to do it. The bins are available to them in the cafeterias, and they're very well used. I've seen our own Operation Clean Sweep where we provide the breakdown of these materials, and I see the kids gravitating and understanding. They get it. They want to participate. They want to do it. I have teenagers at home. To them, these sorts of things are more second nature. It's harder for me to accept. It is more work, and we are being asked to pay a penalty for the privilege of doing more work, of sorting our own garbage. It's true for a lot of things. We ask everyone to conserve water, and as you use less water, we have to now still pay for the infrastructure. We have to pay for the pipes and the people that maintain the pipes. So those costs don't go away. If anything, they go up. So you use less water, yet we still ask you to pay more. It's a really unfortunate reality. But it doesn't go unnoticed. We do realize that that's the case, and we do realize that this is going to be, as I mentioned, something that's going to be adopted slowly. It's going to cause pain, but it really is, to me at least, obviously the direction that we are going in as a society, and we were going to have to adopt it sooner or later. And so, as part of the subcommittee with the mayor, we agreed to bring that forward for a vote today. I certainly appreciate all the comments. I definitely understand and sympathize with all of them. But I do believe that at this point we are somewhere where this needs to become part of what we do. One question I wanted to pose back to Recology, if I could. We discussed that our particular program will not allow for the use of recyclable plastic bags, but there are other communities that do allow that. And so I wanted to just revisit that and ask, if we were to do that, first of all, is it a possibility? Would we have to go with a different company to process it if that were the case, and what would it do to our cost?
You are correct, Councilmember Salazar. If we chose to use a program that allows biodegradable bags, it is a different processor that is significantly farther, which would increase the cost that much more.
Okay, thank you. So, the last comment I wanted to make, I was also concerned with the carbon footprint. What's it going to do to have 2 more trucks on the road? And Recology confirmed that the new trucks would be biodiesel trucks, and so that would be minimized. And then there is an offset, and maybe you have more information on biodiesel. I assume biodiesel is by far cleaner than conventional diesel.
I don't think the engines are. No, I don't think so. And I'm not sure about that either.
Okay.
But I think simply the fact that biodiesel doesn't make it less air emitting.
Okay.
It just saves on petroleum resources.
Okay. And then, of course, as Kristen mentioned, there's a large amount of methane that's taken out of the air by doing this, by diverting it, and so hopefully, we'll see a net benefit to the environment by doing this, and so.
But the major contributor to that is, in fact, the green waste itself, the garden, lawn clippings, that sort of thing.
We really want to get this on. Camera. So if you have any more, I not so much on camera, but I want it to be recorded. So. The questions were, and the comments were regarding the methane and the use of the biodiesel vehicles, and do they actually help? I mean, they probably help some way because you're not buying diesel gas, but maybe you can comment on those, Kirsten.
Sure, and we are held to a very high emission standard that we have to report on annually. So our trucks are as clean as biodiesel can get. So we do use B20 in all of our trucks. So 20% of it is, 80% is diesel fuel and 20% is another, think of it, oil, like regular oil, sorry.
Okay. All right.
Anything else, Michael?
No, those were my comments.
Irene?
Thank you.
I have a few more questions, Kirsten. Some of the concerns that were voiced were about the size of the green cans.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a smaller green can available?
Absolutely, we can make a smaller green can available to those that would require one.
Okay, and so what do they do? Just call you up and say, I want to trade this in?
Yeah.
Okay, that's one
Absolutely.
thing. So that should help with some of that. Then people are talking about, and I've experienced myself, that the wind blows the carts over and that comes in and the raccoons get it and all those things. And I know you can't lock them because the drivers then can't dump the garbage, but is there a possibility of, as we migrate to different, like if somebody's migrating from a 60 to whatever it is, to a 32, or if they migrate from that's a liner, but are there carts available cans available that have latches that people could get, or are there tips that could be on your website that show people how they could latch their containers while still allowing the garbage trucks to dump the things without unlocking them?
Yeah.
That's a tortured sentence, but I hope you understand what I'm asking.
I can absolutely empathize with the comments made that cans can tip over and all the mess comes out. Nowhere, any of the cities that I've spoken to up and down the peninsula utilize any type of locking mechanism on their carts.
A latch kind of thing?
They don't have latches on their carts. Nobody uses a latch on their carts. If you're welcome to put a latch on your cart as long as it's serviceable on service day. If it opens, we tip it and everything comes out and it goes back down, absolutely, if that gives you, the resident, a piece of comfort, that's okay, as long as it's serviceable is what I need to put out there. It needs to be serviceable.
Okay.
by 6 a.m.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
No.
Rico?
First of all, you said a couple times 6 a.m. I was under the impression it was serviceable at 7 a.m. because I'll just tell you I don't meet the 6 a.m. deadline. So is it 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. that the garbage needs to be out in front of the house?
6 a.m.
Okay.
You might not be serviced until 7, and if that...
I get service later, but I just thought it was 7 a.m. Once when I called some time ago because I was missed, and so I thought maybe I didn't get it out in time. So you're saying that the rule is 6 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay. That was just for more, I guess, personally I wanted to know, but I thought it was 7. A few things. First, I think it was Mike who brought up the question about a return card, which is an interesting concept, which I don't know if 218 specifies that way or not because it is a protest vote, but it was an interesting concept. I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it. So I don't know if the city attorney could just as an interest for future to see, because obviously this requires for any type of increases. I know that I'm going to go back in time and think back to when we got the green waste, the green for the greens and stuff. That once was a latch, if I'm not mistaken. There used to be a black latch that over time maybe got worn and it came off, but now again, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what my memory is telling me. So, am I wrong or?
No, I believe you are right because I believe the one that I inherited had some sort of latch. I'd have to find out what the change was made, whether the cart company doesn't provide them that way anymore, or if there was a serviceable problem with that latch. So I would be happy to get back to staff and council as to what change was made at that period of time. It's been a long time. In regards to this matter, and I appreciate everybody's comments because I think you wouldn't realize from what I've read and what I've heard, there's some ideas and thoughts that come up that we don't think of. And we're not the experts of everything. Sometimes people come up with something and at the grocery store and it astounds me. So I appreciate that. One thing that was mentioned by a gentleman I do respect immensely was about maybe, things already being sized up and votes kind of already cast per se, and I know there was there wasn't anything negative. It was just kind of a thought. But I personally have wrestled with this. I hadn't made my mind up, and at 2 o'clock the garbage company had an uninvited, I wouldn't say unwelcomed, but unannounced guest at me at the counter today. So I drove over there because I still had questions. I wanted to go to the plant. I wanted to talk to somebody. I wanted to understand. I wanted to see or get some visuals to what I could to try to better understand it because I'm somebody who likes to see things tangibly or have a face-to-face. So not being on the subcommittee, I wanted to take that opportunity, and I didn't have an appointment, but they were gracious enough to let me be seen, and I appreciate that. This was something that when it came up a year ago, I voted against. And I voted against it because of the rate increase that was occurring back then and with the information we had, as Councilmember Salazar said. It was a 3-2 vote. But in the end, it became a 5-0 vote, and it was raised 2.46. I'm not remembering correctly back then, and it was to postpone it and put it off. And nothing is ever for sure because when the water and sewer rates came up, I voted against them. It was a 3-2 vote. It wasn't a 5-0, and that was because I believed they had to go up for what needed to be done, but they were going up too fast, too high, and would hurt too many. So I voted no. But it's a democracy, and we're going forward and making progress. So as I weighed all those things, and I went down there today, and probably after listening to you folks, I hear what you're saying, and I understand you have valid issues, concerns, and some complaints. But I do believe we can certainly put this off again. I think this is something that is necessary for us, just like plastic bags, and I was having a hard time thinking about that one and changing, as Councilmember Salazar said, but in my trunk tonight, there are reusable bags because that's the way it is, and that took me a little bit of time. I think this is something that the city probably is going to need to do. I think that we need to meet standard. I'm also being told in 2025, potentially the landfills in our area, correct me, may be at capacity, and we therefore don't have that as an option, and then we're going to have to go even outside here to actually get rid of our waste. Is that correct, or am I wrong? No, that's very correct.
Things like that concern me for the future.
not only for this town to meet what requirements, goals, and the state will eventually set down to us more rules that require us to do more with what we have, which end up affecting all of us. And that's how it works. So we have a city requirement to meet. We're going to have future requirements to meet. I worry about the future of the landfill, not in my time, but for when I'm not up here and when I'm no longer in this community. And I'm hoping that's a long time for me still living in San Bruno, but I do think it's going to be a step that we need to take. And so with all that weight, I'm going to favor this, but this is with a lot of soul searching and stuff, because Mr. Councilman Salazar is correct. The costs are for the trucks. It's for the extra staff people. So this is going to be initiated, and that's where a large part of these costs are going to. So that's where a lot of the increase is really derived. So those are some of my comments.
Thank you. I was also on the subcommittee with Michael Salazar, and so I won't need to reiterate what he said, which is right on target. We studied this a long time. We studied it a year ago. We wanted more information. We wanted to wait. And I think it's just the right thing to do. In the bigger picture, I'm thinking about my grandkids down the road and not having, like we used to have, piles of garbage that just get thrown into landfill. San Bruno won an award a number of years ago for initiating recycling, and we're a top city now because of that. And people said recycle. We get these 3 bins. Well, you don't have 3 bins now. We're able to get the single stream. And now I believe it's positive for organics. I'll be one of the first to know, because it turns out I got my letter the other day and I happen to be on the trial program. So I'll let you know at the Molly Stones or Lunardi's how it's going. But I think it's really important. One question for Recology, though. Michael mentioned the timing of the program versus the purchase of the vehicles. Is there any flexibility there? If this is approved tonight, do you go out tomorrow and order them? Or is there a period of time for you to say, whoa, this is really not working here at all, we're not going to purchase these?
There is a time frame in which we need to provide new vehicles on the streets by January 1st.
Okay.
So if you were to move forward with this program today, we would initiate that purchase.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any more comments from the council or action by the council? This is requesting to waive the first reading and introduce ordinances separately, I'm assuming? Yes, okay.
I'll start with a motion to waive the first reading for the first ordinance, which is imposing a 2.61% rate increase.
Second.
So motion and second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Someone like to introduce the ordinance?
I will introduce the first ordinance imposing a 2.61% rate increase.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. On item B?
I will make a motion to waive the first reading on the second ordinance imposing a 4.48% rate increase for Recology.
Second.
Motion and second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Would someone like to introduce the ordinance?
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Thank you. Considering the crowd, we're going to take just a 5-minute recess. So if you, unless you want to hear the inner report of the Culture and Arts Commission, which will happen next. So, all right. Thank you. I'd like call the council back to the dais, please. We will now move to item 11, which is the annual report of the Cultural and Arts Committee.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, council people, council members. Melody Tobin. I'm the chair of the Culture and Arts Commission this year. I have two of the members of the commission with us, Tammy and Pamela. And Carolyn Livingood, thank you. Sorry, Carolyn. And our staff member is with us tonight, John Alita. We'd like to show you our annual report of 2013 and our work plan for 2014. The Commission is responsible for promoting the artistic development of the community and preserving San Bruno's diverse cultural heritage. The Commission's goals include acquiring and maintaining public art, as well as sponsoring programs and events that enhance the quality of life for residents and improve the image and character of the community. Our 2012-2013 accomplishments: we received approval for the Centennial Art Project concept and site. We piloted the Gallery Art Exhibit program in the City Library, presented Movies in the Park, presented Shakespeare in the Park, initiated a partnership with Skyline College, Division of the Creative Arts and Social Sciences. We received approval for Centennial Art Project and concept and the site. This project will commemorate the city's 100th anniversary of incorporation in December of 2014. The goal of this project is to recognize and celebrate the city's past, present, and its aspirations for the future. The RFQ is on the council's agenda this evening and was approved. The Commission will request and review applications and make a project design and artist recommendation to the City Council in the fall. We piloted the Community Gallery Exhibit program in the library. Last year, we successfully selected six local artists to exhibit their artwork, 1 from San Bruno, 3 from San Mateo County, and 2 from the East Bay. After 5 years of this event, Movies in the Park continues to be very popular with San Bruno families. Every Friday in the month of September, we show a movie in the park beginning at dusk. And they're family-friendly movies that are on the city website right now if you'd like to log in and vote for your favorite movie. The highest 4 vote getters will be shown in September. Shakespeare in the Park. Last October, San Francisco Shakespeare Festival performed A Midsummer Night's Dream. We initiated a partnership with Skyline College's Division of their Creative Arts Department. We attended a tour in April and initiated discussion on ways to work together with San Bruno or with Skyline College. Our goals for 2013 and 2014. We plan to complete the Centennial Art Project, the RFQ process, and recommend an artist and a design for approval by the City Council. Work with the recognition sculpture artist to create and install an interpretive plaque for the sculpture in the city park. Plan for the relocation and installation of the transportation mural that was moved from the San Bruno Avenue. Continue the gallery exhibit program at the library. Present the movies in the park. Present the Shakespeare in the park. And continue to develop the Commission's vision for the future art projects. We would like to extend an invitation for the Council to join the Culture and Arts Commission up at Skyline College possibly next month in August. We are going to provide some dates that maybe we can meet together and take a tour of Skyline College. We were impressed and amazed at the art that they have on their campus and the length of art programs they have going, the public murals, and all the art projects they have. their art exhibits, their gallery, and they are very interested in working with the city of San Bruno cooperatively to bring art throughout the city. And so we would like to extend an invitation to the council to join us for a tour of Skyline, and any members of the public that would like to join us in an open tour to Skyline College, an evening, approximately 5 o'clock in August. And we will email you some dates and see if we can't come up with a planned tour that we can join. And that's all I have for you this evening, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Commission?
First of all, do you know what the Shakespeare play is going to be for October?
Yes, it'll be Julius Caesar.
Oh, wow, okay. And the art displayed in the library is fabulous. I really enjoy it. I noticed that you're just changing over, right? So I also wondered, is there a place to do like a biography of the artists or some kind of notice of people, get people to look up and see what's there, because I know people don't always pay attention.
Yeah, I can answer that for you, Councilmember O'Connell. We do currently the new exhibit. One artist has yet to install, but the first one, there is a biography that is posted for that artist. We always request one, and we most of the time do receive one and post it. We've also, it was a suggestion from the commission that when the new exhibits are installed, that those artists might be interviewed for the what's happening around town segment, so that might get some more interest from the community. So they will be also, I've talked to cable television about trying to arrange that as well.
Oh, excellent. That's great. So thank you. I just want to thank you, and especially through your leadership and all the hard work that the commissioners have done. It's not easy keeping the ideas that the Art Commission was created for going. Sometimes it gets discouraging, I know, but I really appreciate the leadership and the efforts all of you have done, and I know the community as well appreciates. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. We currently have an open call for artists for the next year's exhibit in the library. We change it quarterly. We're coming to the end of our first year. So right now, if you go to the city website, it gives you the information in the application process to submit some art. We encourage every person, every average person, if you're a photography buff and you have some gorgeous pictures of San Bruno Park, the kids in the park, the kids at the pool, your cute dog, whatever you think is appealing to you, it is appealing to other people as well. We are not just calling for professional artists. If you have photography that you would like to submit some samples to us, that qualifies. This truly is open to everybody, and it's for the community, and we encourage the community to fill out an application and submit your art project.
Have you reached out to Skyline art students to do this? To do it?
We have reached out to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. The heart of this city is the commissions, boards, and committees, all volunteer work, and people don't really realize how much work goes beyond in the background, you know. And get your rest, because you're going to be a very integral part of our 100-year anniversary next year. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. We look forward to it.
Okay, great. Item number 9, public comment on items not on the agenda. It's the council's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and or action where appropriate. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. Would anyone like to address the council under public comment? Mr. Riegel.
Robert Riegel. I'm currently a board member for the Chamber of Commerce and their Farmers Market Committee Chair. And on their behalf, I would like to thank City Manager Connie Jackson and her department and staff for the recent Focus article that gave very good words and hopefully enticement to the San Bruno residents to attend our farmers market. Also want to thank the city for their assistance in helping see that San Mateo Avenue is clean on Sundays. I believe Recology San Bruno also has been part of the team that is making sure that at least the block for the farmers market is nice and clean. Recology was here earlier, but I also want to thank Recology that just received garbage pickup calendar that they sent out, had a nice little blurb on publicizing the farmers markets every Sunday through November 10 to 2 on San Mateo Avenue between Genevan and Sylvan. We the Chamber and hopefully the residents of San Bruno appreciate a business such as Recology in supporting this. In conclusion, it appears that the farmers market on San Mateo Avenue is growing as together the Chamber and the city hopes that it will be growing. So we hope to have better reports as we go forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Robert. Anyone else like to address the council under public comment?
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, how's it going?
Just
sure
for the
is
record,
great.
tell us your name and your street.
Oh yeah, Alan, A-L-A-N, Lupke, L-U-B as in boy, K-E, Fleetwood Drive. Sure is good to see the trains going across the high rise. With the changeover to the staff of San Bruno Patch, I find I'm missing out on a lot of information which I realize now that I've taken for granted, and I'd like to see restored to the city's website, or emphasis placed on that. And then I've got four items I'd like to see recurring reports and milestones. One is on the rail crossing, and that's not too bad. That's already existing, and I wouldn't want to miss the ribbon cutting if I haven't already missed it.
No.
And the other one is three more is the committees and so on, and the ideas for the use of the recovery funds from PG&E. Thirdly is the planning for the centennial, and 4 is the demise of the redevelopment agency and the status of funds and the monies and how that's going. So that's 4 items I'd just like to throw out there as a suggestion. Now, I've tried to get, I think we have an ordinance that prevents these flyers with stones in them from being thrown in your driveway, if I'm not mistaken. I've called the police. I had a police officer come up, and I have to educate him as to the ordinance, and I guess that's not going to be enforced. I don't know. But there's that. I got that on my way home. I have some unfinished business with the city. Last August, I believe it was, I started this. I had received a proffer from an insurance company telling me that my water line that I'm responsible for the cost of maintaining and repairing the exterior water service line that brings fresh water to my property. Since I don't know where that is, and if I have responsibility for it, I certainly didn't take this insurance, but I did send a message to what I thought was the appropriate agency, and then I followed it up with faxing of the proffer to the city clerk. And the deadline for this was back in October 31st. I think it was in December I finally sent it to the city clerk. I'd simply like to know water line comes in to 2550 Fleetwood Drive, and if I in fact am responsible for costs for maintaining and repairing exterior water service line. That's simply the question I asked, and it's fallen on deaf ears. So I'm asking it here again tonight. Could somebody please explain to me, come out and visit and show me where this is, where the water line is, and what my responsibilities are regarding the water line coming to my property?
Okay. We'll get some answers for you, Mr. Lutke.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the council? All right, conduct of business, item 10A, receive oral report on the 4th of July fireworks activities.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. Deputy Chief Dave Downing and I are here to provide you with a report on the 4th of July activities in San Bruno. In 2005, the voters passed Measure G, allowing the sale and use of safe and sane fireworks in San Bruno. Allowing safe and sane fireworks increases the volume of activity for police and fire on the 4th of July and the days leading up to the holiday, as the use of safe and sane fireworks is often intermingled with the use of illegal fireworks. The use of illegal fireworks and the misuse of safe and sane fireworks pose a risk to safety. Because of this risk, each year since the measure passed, the police and fire departments present to the City Council our best efforts at an education and enforcement plan. This plan is designed to prevent injury to persons, to protect property from damage, to curb the use of illegal fireworks, and to ensure that safe and sane fireworks are used in a safe manner. Deputy Chief Dave Downing will give you our education portion of this year's campaign. This year, over the 8-day reporting period from June 28th to July 5th, we had 128 reports of firework violations. Last year, we had 111 calls during the same time frame. This increase is likely due to an increase in July 5th. Last year, we had 4 calls. This year, we had 11. During the 4th of July, we had 88 firework-related calls this year. Last year, we had 89. Our pre-enforcement efforts included contacting those neighborhoods where we had previously received complaints of illegal firework use. Officers visited over 150 homes and apartments and advised the residents of our enforcement policy and to call us when they observe violations. We also deployed patrols prior to and after the 4th of July to specifically look for individuals using illegal fireworks. On the 4th of July, all police personnel were brought into work with the exception of those already scheduled on a vacation. We also brought in officers from other jurisdictions to assist us during the peak hours of activity. We had 63 personnel working the evening of the 4th. This included myself, the command staff, officers, supervisors, dispatchers, call takers, community service officers, and the officers from the allied agencies. We had staff assigned to our regular patrol to handle our normal routine calls for service, and we had staff assigned to strictly handle enforcement in areas that we had violations in previous years, and teams were assigned to those areas. On July 4th, we had 178 calls for service. So to put this in perspective, on a normal routine weekday, we average anywhere from 70 to 80 calls for service. On July 4th, we handled 109 calls for service during a 4-hour window from 8 p.m. to midnight. That 4-hour window was a typical peak level of activity on the 4th of July. Over the enforcement period, officers issued 8 citations for dangerous firework violations. 7 citations were issued on the 4th, and 1 citation was issued on July 5th. Officers encountered situations where the illegal use was mixed with safe and sane, making it difficult to determine violators. It was especially difficult because you knew illegal activity and illegal fireworks were going off, but by the time you got up there, you couldn't see anybody around it. Officers confiscated an estimated 61 pounds of dangerous fireworks. Illegal firework violations were observed throughout the city, and there was no geographic region where their use was more prevalent than others. We did arrest one subject for discharging a firearm, and we arrested another individual for causing a fire through the use of illegal fireworks. So based on our calls for service, the level of activity experienced from officers out in the field, the amount of fireworks that we confiscated, they were all pretty much comparable to last year. Again, we think the slight increase was due to the holiday falling on a Thursday, and Friday there was more activity. What we've experienced over the years is we have had a decline up until this year, a slight increase this year. We are going to be coming in to the weekend over the coming years, so we anticipate the activity may grow. While the final numbers are still being calculated, preliminary estimates for the 2013 Education and Enforcement Campaign appear to be within the projections provided to you back in May. The costs associated with the Education and Enforcement Campaign will be the actual cost attributed to the resources that we deployed over the 4th of July campaign. That includes fire, public works, cable TV, everything inclusive of enforcement and education. This effort is above and beyond what we normally do on a day-to-day basis. The amount is passed on to the community organizations who benefit from the sale of safe and sane fireworks, and this allows the city to be reimbursed for our expenses. And I'll now turn it over to Deputy Chief Dave Downing for the prevention presentation.
Honorable Mayor and council members, I'll give you a report based upon what happened in regards to fire. First of all, we met initially with community groups and the vendors to go over the safety regulations prior to the 4th of July. Part of our public education campaign was to do a focus article. We had cable television PSAs, educational materials also sent to the schools, and we had a lot of postings throughout the city to hopefully deter illegal fireworks. During the time of sales from the 28th to the 4th, we had daily inspections of the 18 booths by Fire Marshal Jim Allen and the engine companies. And on the 4th, we had extra staffing. We staffed an additional engine that was dedicated strictly to San Bruno. We also had 3 extra chief officers, Deputy Chief McWhorter from Millbrae, and also Battalion Chief Jim Allen and myself. And then just prior to the evening where everything started, we patrolled the streets and the engines as well as the battalions. Overall, it wasn't a huge amount of calls. There was 13 calls, emergency calls, 4 of them medical. 9 calls were related to fireworks. We had 2 small fires. One was in front of a yard on Genevieve. Another was a small fire, fence fire on Earl. Engine 52 had a significant grass fire in South City that they helped out with. And other than that, there was just a few debris and grass fires, a couple of dumpster fires. A total of 61 pounds of illegal fireworks were packaged for disposal, which will be done through the Sheriff's office later in the month. That pretty much wraps up our report for fire. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions of our chiefs? Michael?
Thank you. I'm curious, how did the number of citations or the amount of criminal activity in San Bruno compare to the neighboring communities?
So we did check with Pacifica Police Department. They did see an increase in the number of violators and an increase in the number of administrative citations written this year, but their area was confined to the beach. So what they did is they allowed fireworks on the beach. However, there were more restrictions in the residential areas. And speaking with the police department today, they found that those residential areas were more difficult, similar to what we find. We find that we've been doing this for a while. People start to light the fireworks and run away, or they light them in their backyard, and it's more difficult to apprehend.
And also, did we receive any complaints from neighboring communities about fireworks purchased in San Bruno being used in other jurisdictions where they're not allowed?
I did not receive any complaints, but you are correct, because Pacifica and San Bruno are the only two cities that do sell fireworks. And we have had complaints in previous years.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Rico?
Very quickly, I did go to the briefing at the police department with all the personnel that were on duty, and it was appreciated. Again, I know our staff is mandatory to be there unless they're on a full week's vacation, so I do appreciate their assistance and willingness, one way or the other, to help out the community and to get us through, another year, and hope that continues. I also, to Chief Telford, who tolerated me for a couple hours in the car with him that night as we did a drive around, and I had talked to some of the residents since that, just to try to get a gauge on what their thoughts were. But needless to say, I did want to thank both the police and fire personnel for their work, their effort, and being here to help keep the community safe.
Thank you, Chiefs. Thank you very much. Item 10B, adopt a resolution, and there's 5 parts to this, calling for the holding of a general municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2013, for the election of certain officers as required by the provisions of the laws of the state of California relating to general law cities. Requesting the Board of Supervisors of the County of San Mateo to render specified services to the city relating to the conduct of a general municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2013. Requesting the Board of Supervisors of the County of San Mateo to consolidate a general municipal election to be held on November 5th, 2013, with other elections to be held on the same date pursuant to 10403 of the Election Code. Adopting regulations for the candidates for elective office pertaining to candidate statements submitted to the voters at an election to be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2013. And lastly, providing for giving notice of election. And Carol, you want to update us or talk to us a little bit about all of this?
Honorable Mayor and Council, on November 5th, 2013, San Bruno will be holding a general municipal election to fulfill the following offices: 1 mayor for 2-year term, 2 council members for 4-year terms, 1 city clerk for a 4-year term, and 1 city treasurer for a 4-year term. Before you this evening is a resolution asking that you call for the election, request the Board of the Supervisors of the County of San Mateo to render specified services, request the Board of Supervisors to consolidate with other elections to be held the same date, and then adopt regulations for candidates to elective office and provide notice of election. The notice of election will be published in a local newspaper, as well as in the World Journal in Chinese and a Spanish newspaper as required by the county. The candidate filing period is going to open on Monday, July 15th and will run through August 9th, 2013. This filing period could be extended if one of the existing candidates does not file to run again. The nomination papers and packages will be available in the city clerk's office during the filing period. If a candidate wants their statement to be published in the sample ballot, San Bruno's master fee schedule requires the candidate to pay $550 to cover the cost. The city has budgeted $54,000 to cover the cost of this election, as estimated by the county's elections office. This figure could change based on how many candidates and measures are in the voter pamphlet. I ask you to adopt this resolution, and am open to any questions you might have.
Any questions for Carol? Action by the council?
I'll introduce the resolution for adoption. I like that, thank you. Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Item 10C, receive a report and adopt a resolution authorizing the sale of wastewater revenue refunding bonds to refinance outstanding 2002 installment payment obligations, and approving the final form of related financing documents and approving official actions.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, In 2002, the city issued $9.8 million worth of certificates of participation to fund improvements to the city's wastewater system, which were necessary to bring the city into compliance with the Regional Water Quality Control Board's 2007 cease and desist mandate. And I believe I might have caused a little bit of confusion with the use of the year 2007. The mandate, it was received in 1997 with a 10-year window to complete those improvements. I just want to clarify the use of the 2007. The projects completed with these funds included the 7th Avenue Relief Sewer, Keynes Avenue to Angus Relief Sewer, Angus Connector Sewer, the Engvall Relief Sewer, and the Rollingwood Relief Sewer. All the proceeds from the 2002 issuance have been spent and all projects have been completed. As of July 2013, the city's outstanding principal is $7.55 million. The current rate of interest on these outstanding debt ranges from 4.25% to 5.125% over the remaining 19-year term. The city's financing team, which consists of our financial advisor, Fieldman Rollup and Associates, our bond counsel, Jones Hall, and Prager Sealy and Company as the underwriter, have determined that the market conditions are right to consider a refunding of this outstanding debt. Current estimates indicate that the city could lower its interest rate to a range of 3 to 4.25% over the remaining 19-year term, which would calculate to a net present value savings of $1.2 million, or an estimated $70,000 to $80,000 a year savings to the wastewater fund, which also includes all costs associated with the issuance of this refunding. Should the City Council choose to move forward this evening with the refunding, adoption of the resolution that is before you will authorize the city to move forward and will approve the following documents. There's a preliminary official statement, which is the document, a very thick document, which is circulated to the potential investors, which provides a description of the city, the wastewater system, and the overall finances of the system and the risk factors that potential investors need to be aware of. There's the indenture of trust, which is the agreement between the city and its trustee, Union Bank, that represents the bondholders and the rules and responsibilities of each party. The bond purchase agreement, which is the agreement between the city and the underwriter to purchase and accept delivery of the bonds, and also includes the not to exceed 0.8% amount that the underwriter is entitled to as part of their fee. And also, just to highlight that the net present value savings that I mentioned represents about approximately 8% savings. However, the resolution before you this evening does have an amount of 5% as the threshold, in that the city would not move forward with this refunding if the savings were not in excess of 5%. So at this point in time, that savings is estimated to be 8%. So assuming City Council approval of these items, the next steps will be to secure an underlying credit rating from Standard & Poor's, which we would anticipate by the end of next week. And then we would conduct an order period to secure investors and execute the bond purchase contract. We anticipate entering the market by July 30th. And then we would close the bonds and pay off the 2002 certificates on or before August 15th. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Kim?
Through the chair. I just had a thought. As part of our current endeavor in replacing sewers and upgrading our system, there was discussion that there would be, it would be very likely that we would have to incur some sort of debt to allow us to replace things on a timely basis and allow the rates to catch up with that. And I'm wondering if we're seeing favorable rates right now, if we should be considering issuing new debt to finance some of those projects to take advantage of the rates. And if so, would it be possible to combine new debt with the retirement of the old debt and creating a larger package that might be more attractive to investors?
I'm going to defer the second part of that question to our financial advisor about the packaging of the two types of debt, because I'm not entirely sure how that would work. To answer your first question about whether or not we should be looking at bonding sooner, maybe rather than later, given the current interest rates, my response would be that given the current balance, the cash balance of the fund. We do believe that there's sufficient funds available to fund the near term, and when I say near term, I'm thinking the next 2 years of capital improvements. And so I think, the cost benefit to bonding now to fund improvements when we probably have sufficient cash available for the next 2 years, the cost would probably still outweigh, as far as, even though the interest rates are lower, but it is something that we can certainly look at, again, given the current interest rates.
Mayor, members of council, Jim Fabian of Fieldman Rollup and Associates. This on, right? Okay. I just wanted to answer the question. In a situation where you have a refunding of an existing bond issue and you combine that with a new money issuance, you would have some economies of scale that would be derived from combining those two activities together. In other words, your fixed cost would be spread amongst a larger base. So there are some economies of scale of doing that. In working with Kim and Connie and looking at the refunding of the 2002 bonds and looking at the balances that have been accumulating in the wastewater fund and the status of the projects, we determined that it was best to move forward with the standalone refunding at the present time and look at new money issuance down the road over the next couple of years as the projects get designed, and we look at a pay-go approach to paying for those projects versus externally borrowing for those projects. But at this time, we would be solely looking at going forward with the refunding of the existing 2002 bonds.
Anything else? Questions of staff or action by the council?
I guess I'll introduce the resolution for a vote.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Item 10D, receive information regarding the fiscal year 2013-14 budget requested as part of the budget review.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, you have in your packet information that was requested prior to following the study session in June and prior to the last City Council meeting at which you approved the budget. We're simply providing that information as requested by the council and stand ready to answer any questions. There is no other action being requested or required of the City Council at this time.
Okay. Any questions of staff?
You, Chair.
Rico?
I appreciate the information. Thank you very much. Couple things on the hose that was discussed. I know that would come back, fire department hose. That would come back at a future time. Do we have a ETA?
We're expecting to bring that back to you on your July 23rd meeting, which is the next meeting of the City Council.
Thank you very much. What I did, and I'm not going to go through all this, like you said, the budget was approved, is what I did was I just quickly kind of went through the professional services and under administrative and engineering. And what I did is I went through those in the enterprise, central garage, up to just before community service. And just as to why I sometimes ask a lot of questions, and we know I do, is that what I did is, because in talking to the city manager, obviously you can't be exact because obviously things go up, things go down, supplies are needed more or less, and then the cost of the supplies. So I do get that. So what I wanted to do was look at something that had a $5,000 difference from one year to the other. As far as over, there were 6 items. As far as under, there were 18. Out of those 18, to be more realistic, I said, well, let's just look at those that are $15,000 in difference as far as being under budget. And those were 8, which accounted to $338,000. So in the big picture, I think every penny counts. I think it's important for us to do our due diligence. I know one item that stood out to me was in water supply, contractual services. It was budgeted at $155,000. We expended $36,278, which is $118,000+ difference under budget. And again, we were asking for $155,000. I think these are the important things that need to really be looked at, examined, digested, reviewed, and I know the city manager showed me a process on the Excel spreadsheet on how it is calculated by staff in the various departments. But these are sometimes the reasons I ask these questions and why I go into this, because in the big scheme of things, that money may not change the world or change our nice community, but I think I have an obligation while I sit up here is to make sure that our tax dollars, because everybody here pays, are spent wisely, effectively, and that I, along with staff and the council, do our diligence to review those. So I think that's probably it in a general sum of this. And I would just make a suggestion that in the future that maybe we try to, if it's possible, to have the budget adopted at the first meeting in June. So if there should be some additional questions or data that needs to be gotten back, that we're not within a time frame that it is kind of, hey, we need to approve something because of July 1, we need to operate, which I understood that. We could have passed an emergency, we could have had a special meeting of the council to pass a spending gap or whatever the city manager had the better term for it. But obviously that resolution needed to be brought forward at that time in order for that to occur. So where I was prepared again to do part of the budget under the general fund, but not the enterprise, these are some of the answers that I was looking for. And this is some of the information that I wanted to go into, indulge in a little bit more and have a better understanding. But I do appreciate the staff's time, and I appreciate the answers that I received.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have a comment?
I just wanted to clarify one item. The information in the City Council's packet that was requested and has been provided as a result of this item, as Councilmember Medina indicated, there were a few items particularly in the enterprises where the questions, that was the subject of the questions. As indicated, some number of those accounts and those line items were budgeted but underspent. That means that where the budget was approved at a certain level, expenditures came in under that amount. Those resources that were budgeted revert into the fund. In other words, are retained and available for expenditure at another time. Those resources don't go away or get spent on something else, but represent amounts that are available for programming by the City Council at your discretion. So one of the primary takeaways, I think, from the comment that you're making is that there are a number of items that, due to a variety of circumstances, were programmed but not spent.
The city manager is correct, and yes, the money comes back. Obviously, it's not going elsewhere. It goes back, and I didn't count into that in carryovers because there were a couple of those. There were a couple that the number should go into a different account. So I certainly didn't count that in what my little just overall view was. Just to be fair, and like the city manager said, you can't predict all the prices of certain materials and tools. But again, I do appreciate the time and the effort, and I do wish that when we do our budgets that we look at these things with an important eye, because obviously it's the taxpayers' dollars. Thank you.
Item 10E, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Lee and Rowe, Inc. for design of the replacement of the Cunningham water tank, tank number 1, in an amount not to exceed $154,060.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the Council. My name is Yoon Jun Kim. The Cunningham water tank is one of 8 water storage tanks utilized as part of the city's water distribution system. The tank is located off Cunningham Way, adjacent to 280. This tank was constructed in 1964 with a storage capacity of 2.5 million gallons. In 2008, a seismic evaluation concluded that due to seismic deficiencies, this tank should only be filled to a water level of 22 feet short of its 32-foot maximum. The city's water master plan specifies that the full capacity of this tank is required to balance differences in supply and demand, provide fire flows, and emergency storage in case of supply failure. This project is included in the city's adopted CIP program and is consistent with City Council's clear direction to staff to ensure that water facilities are brought up to current seismic standards. In April of this year, the city issued a request for proposals for design services to perform the retrofit or replacement of the Cunningham tank. The selection committee consisted of the project manager, water system and conservation manager, water services manager, and the city engineer. Lee & Rowe was selected as the most qualified firm to perform the requested work. Lee & Rowe has successfully performed similar water tank projects for other public agencies throughout California, including the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, East Bay Municipal Utilities District, and Marin Municipal Water District. The water tank projects consisted of replacements and retrofits of water tanks in seismic areas from less than 1 million gallons to up to 90 million gallons. The manager assigned to our project has over 30 years of relevant experience. The references were checked by staff, and all the feedback received was positive. A preliminary analysis by Lee & Rowe suggests that the water tank replacement is strongly recommended over retrofit, which is consistent with staff's experience with the Glenview water tank. A water tank replacement would provide higher life expectancy, lower maintenance costs, and less variables associated with a new tank versus a 50-year-old tank that has been retrofitted. The design phase is scheduled to take approximately 12 months, and the construction phase would take the following 8 months. The recommended contract for $154,060 provides for the design of a replacement tank. Staff also requested another proposal from Lee & Rowe to incorporate an additional 1 million gallons of storage into the new tank design to account for the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission proposed regional groundwater storage and recovery project. The intent of this project is to promote the regional recharge of groundwater supplies by increasing the use of surface water while reducing the use of groundwater during normal and wet years. The operational change would help ensure that an adequate water supply is available through groundwater sources during drought years. The city has been working with the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission for over 10 years to coordinate the planning for this project. Based on the analysis included in our water master plan, the city would need an additional 1 million gallons of storage in the service area covered by the Cunningham tank. If the city staff is able to come to a reasonable agreement with the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission during the early stages of the design phase, within approximately 4 months from design start, the consultant would be able to incorporate the additional storage into the design without negative impacts. Then staff would return to council for consideration of revising the project and amending the design contract. At this time, staff recommends award of the design contract to Lee & Rowe for replacement of the Cunningham tank at its current 2.5 million gallon capacity. This concludes my presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Is this your first presentation?
Correct.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
And welcome.
No questions.
Any questions or comments?
I
Irene?
just have a question. What is staff going to consider reasonable with San Francisco?
That they would agree to reimburse us for the cost of the extra storage, because as part of the regional groundwater project, we would voluntarily shut down our wells that would be used for that extra storage capacity.
Okay, so I personally agree that they should do that, but don't we have a benefit ourselves to having that water? So are we expecting them to cover all the cost of the increased design cost and the increased construction cost? Or are we looking at, I know it just, I don't want us to be penny wise and pound foolish kind of thing.
Based on our draft agreement negotiated with SFPUC up to this point. All of the related cost to this project will be paid by the project itself.
Okay.
What Yun refers to as reasonable agreement, that this additional capacity need was a new information included in our water system master plan. And knowing how SFPUC works will take us a long time to have an agreement in place. But if in 4 months will be a reasonable understanding between the parties that they will be responsible for the full funding of this additional cost, then staff will come back with recommendation for your consideration.
Okay. And so this, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I think we may be missing your point, which is that reasonable might include consideration of a benefit that the city would receive, and we will certainly take that into consideration in any further conversations with the San Francisco PUC. We understand that the conjunctive use program or the Regional Groundwater Storage and Recovery Project does potentially benefit not only the system region-wide, but San Bruno as well in providing redundancy and drought capability, et cetera. So we will consider that as part of our negotiations with the PUC should there be an opportunity to do that.
Okay, yes. I totally believe that they should pay for any increases, but also, on the other hand, I don't want us to not have the capacity for water just because we shut our eyes to any kind of compromise.
Anything else? We're asked to adopt this resolution. Rico, did you have a question, Rico?
No, I was just saying welcome.
Oh, thank you. Right.
I'd like to introduce this resolution for adoption.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Our last item under conduct of business is item F, adopt a resolution authorizing an application to the Metropolitan Transportation Commission for the One Bay Area Grant Funding Program and committing $129,580 matching funds from the City Measure A Fund for the Street Median Improvements Project and the Transit Corridor Pedestrian Connection Improvements Project.
Honorable Mayor, this is and member of City Council. One Bay Area Grant Program is also known as the OBAG Grant Program. It is a new funding approach that integrates the region's federal funding programs with the state's climate law and sustainable community strategies. For the San Francisco Bay Area, MTC serves as the agency that received this the federal funding for the local programming. In October 2012, on behalf of the MTC, CCAP released a call for projects for the Transportation for Livable Communities subprogram in the MTC's OBAT program. The Transportation for Livable Community Program is short for TLC. It is a federal funding program that aims to fund local projects that will improve and promote alternative mode of transportation. In line with the City Council's direction and policy to seek state and federal funding opportunities, staff pursued this grant opportunity. After detailed review of the funding requirements and city's approved 5-year capital improvement program, the street medians improvements and transit corridors pedestrian connection improvements projects are the 2 projects that meet the TLC program funding goals and requirements. Under the street medians improvement project, the city has restored 23 medians to date along El Camino Real and San Bruno Avenue. If the MTC approved the appropriation of the TLC grant funds for this project, 5 medians on San Bruno Avenue between I-280 and El Camino Real will be restored. And this is the project image shown on the screen behind me. This project will complete the restoration and beautification of all the medians on San Bruno Avenue. In addition to the median restoration, the project includes some pedestrian enhancement improvements in order to meet the TLC program requirements and therefore be eligible for funding. Now moving on to, for the Transit Corridor Pedestrian Connection Improvement Project, the goal is to achieve the vision set forth in the general plan policies. Ultimately, the goals are to improve and expand transit connection to and from the BART station, the future Caltrain stations, and in general to create a pedestrian-friendly setting. This project intends to capture pedestrian enhancement feature listed in the general plan. Also, in line with the City Council's direction, staff has pursued available grant opportunities to implement them. The first construction contract under this project focused on installing accessible curb ramps, street trees, and irrigation system along the south side of San Bruno Avenue between El Camino and Huntington Avenue. This first contract also included a landscape improvement option to enhance an existing open area across from the BART station to on Huntington Avenue. At the time of the contract award, this landscape improvement option was not awarded due to high bid and lack of funding. Staff submitted this previously unfunded landscape improvement component for the new TLC grant opportunity. CCAT and notified staff that they will recommend to MTC that this component be funded on the basis that it was part of the first construction project. If it was a standalone project, it would not be eligible for funding. According to federal funding requirements, now the city is required to submit a resolution of local support to MTC stating city's intent to complete the project and committing to the required local match. On a separate note, the city has obtained 2 other separate grants for the overall transit corridor pedestrian connection improvement project. Two of these other grants total up to $850,000 have no local match requirement. Staff will return to the City Council in a later date to formally accept these 2 grants. With that, that concludes my presentation.
Great. Any questions, staff? Irene?
I don't have a question. I just want to comment that I'm really impressed how often and how often your department goes out for grants and how much we receive back. It's really amazing if you add up how many millions of dollars you've gotten that way, and I for one appreciate it, and I know the city is better because of your efforts, so thank you very much. And if there's no other questions, I would like to introduce the resolution for adoption.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Item 11, we already had item 11, which was the report of commissions, boards, and committees. Item 12, comments from council members. I would just like to take the opportunity to commend the actions of all our first responders to the Flight 214 tragedy this last Saturday. I know San Bruno played a very significant role, so thanks to all who helped. Anyone else? All right. Item 13, study session. We already concluded that earlier in the evening. And prior to adjournment, I would like you to join me in a moment of silence in memory of 19 firefighters in Arizona who lost their lives during a forest fire, and also in memory of the 2 young girls who lost their lives this last Saturday in the crash of Flight 214. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned until our next City Council meeting on July 23rd right here at the Senior Center.